Let me get the biggest knife from the drawer and cut the bullshit. Let's talk about this whole PlayStation thing. I'm just sort of organizing my shit here. Gonna get my notes real quick. There we go. And we're gonna just simply start from here. You know what it is by this point. A lot of doom posting about the PlayStation sort of leadership going on right now with Jim Ryan, and a lot of people think that their IPs are in jeopardy because westernization, even though westernization happens with every company, right? Some form of a company has westernized ideals one way or the other because they need to appeal to us Americans some way, somehow, in order to get the game to sell. Whether it's, big action set pieces, people with guns, mindless violence. Like, this has been a thing for a long time now. And I'm quite surprised that this seems to be a big complaint, that too much westernization has been a bad thing, when even the Japanese themselves have been appealing to the Western markets in some fashion. You just might not know, obviously. So we're gonna talk about Days Gone 2 being canceled as the first topic. Days Gone 2, let's talk about how I felt about the first game. I thought the first game was decent for what it was. It wasn't a complete dumpster fire. It wasn't anything that was thought-provoking. It was just something that was middle of the road, a middle of the road zombie-like experience that was open world. And I guess during that time, I needed a game like this because Dead Rising was dead and Days Gone was like $5. And I was like, hold on, I can have a cheap, fun experience going around and beating up freakers, and I don't have to spend like $60 for it. I sat on the idea, I waited, and I eventually got it, and I would say it was worth every portion of my time. I got value out of that game. I enjoyed it. Days Gone has a cult-like following. I cannot pretend it has a cult-like following that was overly positive beyond that. Days Gone 2 being canceled caused some turmoil in the community because it was canceled, and obviously you don't want your favorite game to go away if it had potential in the first place. I understand that philosophy. At the same time, I can't pretend that people did not shit on Days Gone when it came out, saying it was buggy, saying it was generic, saying all this ridiculous stuff about it, and saying, it's not really worth your time, your money, your effort, etc., and acting like this was in high demand. I really don't think it was. I think Sony knew that Days Gone was not going to be as big as their other IPs, because once again, they put that game on sale numerous times. They put that game on PC just like that, right? And I think they knew it wasn't really the critical hit that they were hoping for. Sony Ben was shuffled on numerous projects. They were going to work on an Uncharted game. They were going to work on something that was multiplayer related for Naughty Dog. And I guess they feared becoming Naughty Dog North, and it's quite funny that they feared this when they worked on Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation Vita. Besides the point, they want to also do their own thing and have their own creativity and have their own identity. If they discovered this late, being late bloomers, then I perfectly understand this. However, like I said, you worked on Uncharted Golden Abyss, and you definitely were sidelined to a Naughty Dog IP. So wanting to work on Naughty Dog IPs or not wanting to work on them, there's this weird sort of contradiction here. At the same time, I want them to go back to Siphon Filter. I believe the spy genre is pretty much null and void, absent right now. Splinter Cell is dead. Metal Gear is dead. The only one pushing the reins forward is Perfect Dark and that new James Bond game. That's it. That's the only things that are coming out that might relate to the spy stealth genre. Outside of that, this would be a perfect time to reboot the series. Maybe bring back Gabe Logan. Supposedly he's dead. In Siphon Filter, I forget which one they killed his ass. I think it was Logan Shadow. Logan Shadow, he is supposedly critically wounded and dead. Reboot the series, start over, and then make new storylines from there. That's how I feel about it. That would create some variety on the table. Speaking of variety, people say that Sony has no variety and no platformers. I saw Sly Cooper trending, and I saw people ranting saying that, well, there's no platformers anymore, no really solid platformers. Sly Cooper needs a remake. I agree. They need to remake Sly Cooper. I don't agree with the fact that there's no platformers coming out because you got fucking Ratchet and Clank, a Rift Apart coming out in the summer, a platformer, a platforming shooter that I'm sure you're probably either going to bypass or ignore when you make these arguments. Oh my god, people. Ugh. When you complain about something that has a lack of variety, make sure there's no upcoming releases or prior releases that came out that falls into that particular category. Don't we have like Astro Playroom? I know they shuttered Sony Japan, but they have that game. They also have Ratchet coming out. They also had Sackboy as well. That's a platformer. And they also have that upcoming Project Athia game coming out from Square Enix, right? I don't understand, like, once again, you know, make sure you are aware of the projects coming out first before making that particular statement. Next, we're moving to the topic of digital preservation. I already talked about this on my channel so many times, yet Sony is taking matters into their own hands and they're getting rid of the PlayStation 3 store. Yes, that's right. After a while, you will not be able to purchase those sweet, saucy games anymore in the PlayStation 3 store after the summertime, I believe, is going away. However, if you bought the games or if the games are in your download list, you will be able to get them again. I heard some rumblings about CMOS batteries, and once they eventually die, once the console eventually expires, you will not be able to access those games anymore. I think we need to also take into account that while this makes digital preservation harder, we need to take matters into our own hands. If you haven't already, get a PC. Keep your original PS2, keep your original Xbox, keep your PS3 until it dies. What else should you do? Get jailbroken consoles, get jailbroken handhelds. I know this stuff is money, but once again, if you really do care about digital preservation, you already took matters into your own hands already, I would assume. Also, get an Xbox One. I mean, Xbox One, their store is preserving old games. I mean, you still have to pay for them. It's not like you can't pay for them either. You know, it's not like you're getting a get out of jail free card if you go on the Xbox Live Marketplace and get those old games. They're just there. And it's cool they have the servers up. At the same time, I would say it's not 100% perfect with the disc key reading feature because, once again, you cannot play older games like Alpha Protocol on the Xbox One, and it won't read that Xbox disc in particular because there was some delisting or something that's going on. I don't know, but I know you can't play all your old Xbox games on your Xbox One or Series S or X. But they're doing a job on digital preservation, and I see people adamant against Xbox. It's time to finally go to Xbox if you care about digital preservation. It sucks, but the ultimate reality of knowing why they are doing this is because as much as we care about digital games, we know those old games are not sustaining PlayStation from a monetary perspective to keep that store still active. If it did, it will still be up, it will still be running, and we wouldn't have this announcement. Will they reverse the decision in the future? Who knows? I don't think they will. I think it's going down, and I think I know why it's happening. Again, it sucks. At the same time, they are a business, and if they are not getting particular sales from a particular studio or a particular store, then it's going to go down eventually in favor of the new that's getting a lot more money, a lot more attention, and a lot more buzz. That's the only reason I can figure. So I'm good with PC. I'm good with PS3 for now. I'm going to get a jailbroken console, and I'm going to have that. At this point, take matters into your own hands. It's the only way to really have some sort of say with backwards compatibility. It's the only way to have some sort of leverage with these older games, these older ISOs, these older Yarhars, torrents, whatever. It's the only way to keep them by having these particular platforms and knowing that, hey, I can just fire up my jailbroken console at any time and play these games. The same sort of similar fate goes with this argument of people saying Sony doesn't care about Japan studios anymore or Japanese games. It is true that they shuttered Japan Studio, and that's another venue of variety gone. At the same time, it's not 100% all gone, people. That is a doom and gloom opinion. So first and foremost, we have Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, and that's a deal. Exclusive DLC coming out with Yuffie, and you can play with her. There's still Persona 5 that just came out with a re-release, I think, of more content. And then there's Final Fantasy 16. That's coming out. I think that's going to be like a timed exclusive for the PlayStation 5, and you have that. To say there's still not representation for Japanese titles is ludicrous. DMC5 Special Edition. Didn't they have like a motherfucking deal, an exclusive motherfucking deal with PlayStation in terms of what they were bringing over to that system? I mean, deals are still going to happen regardless. People are still going to make transactions. A business is going to focus on what works for them. Xbox does the same thing with Game Pass. They will dump everything on there for $1, and then it works out for people who don't have a consistent amount of money to build up a solid library. They just want to play the game, move on, everything gets reshuffled. PlayStation's main key will always be new games and exclusive content. As long as those deals are still reeling in, then I believe that people will have nothing to worry about, and I believe they still are going to show indies, which is another topic we're going to touch, which is kind of hypocritical as well. Japan content, like I said, we're not Nostradamus. We don't know what they're going to do in the future with more Japan stuff. If you see more of it, less, whatever, it's always going to be Japanese games, no matter where they are, no matter how you get them. It's always going to be Japanese games supported somewhere. Now, we have the main criticism of all time that I don't agree with the other side on a lot, and I'm going to get into it. So, people are saying that Sony does not care about AA games. They don't care about indies now. I find this to be the most hypocritical fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And you know why? Every time there's a state of play and they show way too many indies, what is the first fucking thing that people say? Oh, these indies are trash. I don't want to play these smaller scale, little tiny ass games. You know, it's not everyone saying this, but there is a demographic of people who feel this way, who like those AAA mainstream titles, and they're being spoiled to them. Now Sony is focusing on AAA development titles a lot more, and the argument has flip-flopped. It's now, well, why are they focusing on stuff like The Last of Us remake and these big budget AAA titles? Now Sony definitely has no variety, and they don't focus on AA or indies at all. Even though they had conferences 100% based on indie content and AA content, people just didn't care. I find this to be the funniest thing in the world, and I keep saying, I think if you want something to change in any sort of medium, you would need to support more of that said product that you are campaigning for. The harsh reality is that indies and AA games, they don't have the same sort of brand recognition because less people are inclined to take chances on new IPs. That's just a fact of life from the side of a developer who would be more safer with a sequel, or on the flip side, the gamer who needs more word of mouth, and even then, they got an extensive backlog and they probably haven't heard of some of these games to begin with. It's just the fact here. People are also pretty fucking narrow-minded, and if they see something that is graphically inferior or 2D or something like that, sometimes they may pass the game off because they are way too reserved in their AAA criteria. That's the issue. You aren't buying them or caring about them. You're just blowing hot air into a balloon. That's the problem. If you really do care about Kenya or indies or shit like that, Go out and buy those games. I understand some people saying, well, I don't want to get Returnal at 70. I understand that much. I do. I'm very iffy about games at $70 as well. I feel like if you wait, games eventually go on a fire sale. That shit happened with Destruction All Stars. It went on a fire sale when Sony tried to sell it at like 70, and then they put it on PSN Plus for free, and then it dropped down to 20. I would say if you're really smart and you really want to budget yourself, be a part of the wait gang. The wait gang, you ain't gotta wait long if a game is not doing well and it turns into a fucking $20 game. You know what I'm saying? However, that being said, if you want to really show your support for AA and indies, go buy these fucking games. Go show them, hey man, fuck you. I don't care about AAA anymore. I'm going to buy AA content only or indie content only. This is my middle finger. We know that's not going to happen. If you want change, you're gonna have to vote with your wallet, and you're gonna have to do a little bit more than making posts on Twitter about it. You're gonna have to actually get those titles, get those AA games, get those indies, and then companies will be like, oh shit, well, we have definitely a bigger market here. We have a wider audience. Let's do more of these instead of more of this. That's the only way you're gonna get more of that. My personal opinion, I believe I'm fine with AA. I'm fine with indies. I'm fine with AAA games being in a thriving space because I have a lot to pick from as a gamer. That's how I feel. But if you don't want more of something else, you're gonna have to switch gears, and you're going to have to put that wallet to the test. Even if you're just one person, at least you're doing something. At least you're contributing. I can't tell you how to spend your money. I don't pocket watch. I don't like when people pocket watch me. Do whatever the fuck you want, but take this into consideration. It's the only way you're gonna make some sort of substance here, and it's the only way you're really gonna get somewhere. Also, for the record, stop fucking saying indies are trash. Like, if you really want to support it, open your mind and have a bit more leeway and perspective. It's the only way, once again, that you'll have new discoveries in content, and maybe you'll enjoy yourself. I liked Hades. It didn't have a big budget, and I still liked it as a game overall. Alright, now we're gonna get into The Last of Us remake, and all I see with people is this crybaby, I don't care about Naughty Dog, and I hate them now, and I'm gonna talk about all the releases all the time, and all, like, get over it. Get the fuck, move on, dude. Like, move the fuck on. It's over. Like, if you don't like something or you don't like their products, you aren't inclined to buy it. Like, it's some crybaby shit that goes on with this series too. I'm not gonna lie. In the midst of the problems that I have with some of these games with the AI and all the other stuff, and maybe some of the writing is a little bit off, I still just can move on to another game willingly. Whenever Naughty Dog comes up in the news, people always do this shit where it's like, oh, I don't care, but I really care, because I go into a long diatribe about it. I seen people say, well, you know, I haven't played part 2, but I'm gonna do a review on it. I give it a 0 out of 10. What? How do you review something you have not played? What is this indoctrination of the mind to give something a 0 off the mere fact that you haven't even touched the controller? I don't get that shit. You know, one thing I don't do on this channel, and I'm gonna put this on Front Street, I don't fraud whether I dislike something or like something. Guess what? I didn't like fucking DMC Devil May Cry the reboot. I still played that motherfucker and gave it a fair shake and a review. People act like a bunch of frauds when it comes to this series. Like, you don't have to play it if you don't like it. Just avoid it, ignore it. I don't play looter shooters. I don't play Borderlands. I'm not into those types of games. Guess what I do? I really don't fuck with them. And if I don't fuck with them, if I don't fuck with something, I don't cover it. Stop force feeding yourself this franchise, and maybe you'll live as a happier person. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. But I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna put that out there. Like, really, just move on, dude. Just move on from it, and you'll be 100% better. Like, whether you like or dislike, whatever, just move on. Get over it. Like, These are grown ass people crying for months over a fucking video game, dude. It's I know it's part of the cinematic like experience and the movie like quality experience, but guess what? So is Metal Gear, so is MGS1, and I enjoy MGS just as much. I have no qualms with people remaking a game in a 6 or 8 year time span, and the logic now is that a lapse in time means that a remake is unneeded. Okay, were people saying this when there was a small lapse in time? I still think 6 years is pretty long for a development cycle for a game that's coming out that's a remake. But 6 years, we have Resident Evil 1 OG that came out on the PS1, and then we jumped to the GameCube in 2002 with the Resident Evil 1 remake. One of the greatest remakes of all time. It is only 6 years apart. Like, what in the fuck? Think about it. Think about it for a second. Like, when we say unneeded remakes based on a lapse of time, one of the best remakes ever, 6 years old. Alright? Like, that's a bad argument, and I called that out on Twitter. Like, you can say 1,000 times that you want differing remakes. I have no problems with that. I think if I had my way, there's a lot of other games I would want remade. But this is their baby. This is their IP. This is their sort of project. And it doesn't mean that other companies are not going to remake other games. Remakes are popular in the gaming sphere. I mean, we just saw that with Resident Evil 2 and 3. They're very popular, and people are still going to do them, and it's not just going to be Naughty Dog that does them. However, like I said, one of the greatest remakes of all time is 6 years old. Only 6. Go figure, right? So I'm going to play this game. I have no reservations about it. Just like every game, I play it, I review it, I'm honest with the viewer, I tell people how I feel. I did not really like The Last of Us 1 that much from a gameplay perspective. Part 2 just amped it the fuck up, and the game is a lot more enjoyable to play over Part 1, in my opinion, from a gameplay perspective. The story can be a little bit weird in spots, but overall, main character deaths, I don't have much of an issue with those. I really don't, because I had that issue in the past where I felt like characters, especially in Japanese games, we talk about Japanese games, I felt that characters in these games, in particular, like Resident Evil, they have god plot armor, and people whine all the time about Mary Sue's and fan fiction and all that shit in Star Wars, yet these characters like Leon or Chris, they survive being like thrown 80 feet in the air. Impossible. You have to suspend your disbelief as to what's going on, and that's one thing I never really liked about that particular piece of writing. Whenever there's stakes on the table, I say, oh shit, well, they're taking a risk. And I like when people actually go out of their way to take risks and see what comes out of it, for better or worse. Sometimes it's for better, sometimes it's for worse. Otherwise, I guess I could say I enjoyed The Last of Us in terms of what it tried to present. I enjoyed Last of Us Part 2 for the unorthodox nature, and if anyone has a problem with it, well, I mean, what are people really going to do about it? This is my opinion. What are you really going to do? I think some people are going to stay cooped up. You got COVID to worry about. Like, don't fucking worry about what people constantly do online as if these people that you don't know personally affect your life. Like, I might have an online disagreement with a nigga, and that's as far as it goes. Some people just need that reality check. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm only laughing at these ass clowns because it's a clear difference from constructive criticism and generating clear hate towards something that you can obviously avoid at all costs. Like, what the fuck? Like, once again, if I really don't like a game, if I really don't like a movie, I just don't talk about it. I don't give it praise. I might do a review. The review might be kind of scathing, but in a smart, positive way. And then I move on with my life. That's it. We all have preferences. If you belittle people for liking games you don't like, you're an elitist, and that's the end of the story for you. And I also want to say, I think it's weird that we have this philosophy now because of part two, where it's like they believe that a game's development will affect another one because of part two. I think budgetary wise, we've seen this happen, but not creatively. You can say all you want that this is true, but Titanfall, for example, and Jedi Fallen Order, these two, for example, are not the same type of game. They are radically different. One is a third-person action adventure with lightsabers. The other is like a first-person sci-fi COD shooter. So you could tell the similarities end at the sci-fi bit, and that Titanfall's development didn't bleed into Jedi Fallen Order at all, and it turned out to be a new experience. Yeah, we need to stop saying that one project is going to affect another one creatively. Until we actually see the results and the rumblings and the similarities, I'm just gonna say that's also false. Now, I can't really think of a real reason for them doing this other than capitalizing on the fact that the HBO show is coming out in a few years, and I do think that is definitely going to be one of those things. However, if they convert the gameplay from part 2 into part 1, and overall it's a more fun experience and the AI is not dumb as fucking molasses, I'll pick up the game and play it. I have no qualms about that at all. That's one of the things I always notice in the first Last of Us. It's really a bare bones husk of Uncharted, and it doesn't work well in some areas. It's very basic compared to part 2 from a gameplay perspective. And if they implement those features back in part 1, or do things that were ambitious in the Last of Us tech demos that were released prior before that, where the AI was a lot more dynamic, then we could have a better game on our hands. Like I said, time lapses don't dictate remakes, and the argument is fickle. The only place I agree is that sure, other games deserve remakes, but it's up to those studios to make those remakes, and that's where the problem lies. So we need to get on Capcom to make that Dino Crisis remake ASAP. The final thing is moving forward. How do we move forward from here as gamers? Well, number one, I do think that people need to support what they're talking about. If you want to see more indies, more variety, more Japanese games, give those games that money, keep supporting, and ultimately people will still see that there's a market. I don't think that market is going to implode because of some news. I think that because The Last of Us remake is even happening, that's not just one piece of the Sony cake. We have to see everything they have to offer in the future. Supposedly they want to offer a counter to Game Pass, and I think that's the most intriguing aspect, because what if we did have a Game Pass counter that was actually filled to the brim with a lot of items that we wanted for like super cheap? I think that's actually going to be the way of the future, where people do this whole Netflix of gaming thing, and we already see that now with Xbox. If you don't like the fact that Sony's doing censorship or all this other stuff with Japanese games, now's the time to buck up and get a PC. I can't say that Xbox is perfect with it, since Phantasy Star was supposedly censored on Xbox, and Steam also was censoring visual novels. So if you want to give that smoke to all the stuff you own, it has to be across the board. Naturally speaking, it doesn't affect me because for PC games, I can remove censors. For PC games, I have mods. So does it really bother me at the end of the day, even though I have all the platforms, I have everything I want, and I can move forward from there? Not really. Like, it doesn't really affect you as a hybrid owner. Sure, you can complain and rant all you want, but you always have those alternatives there. And I think that's the main problem with the gaming sphere today. They always have alternatives or options, they just don't utilize and use them and sing them to the highest praises that they could sing them to. And I think that's what people need to do moving forward. Once again, you do have to vote with your wallet, but you also have to believe in what you say. If you really are against all this PlayStation stuff, dump the console and move on to consoles that actually support that stuff, and then you will be a happier person. Like I said, I can't tell you what to do. only offer you advice or suggestions. I'm happy as a hybrid owner. I'm gonna play these games, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. So this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this long podcast video. I think I'm almost clocking in at about 30 minutes. So yeah, I just wanted to get all that off my chest. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you really enjoyed this video. Oh, and also once again, I wanted to explain the Jedi mind trick. So this tends to happen a lot with criticism. I think these same people that are very rabid about PlayStation, they're going to turn on a dime when new positive news comes out. And what I mean by this is the Jedi mind trick. They did this with Nintendo. A lot of people were against Nintendo DMCAing people for fan projects. They were really up in arms with Nintendo, and then they released the Sephiroth trailer, the Jedi mind trick that happened for Smash, and everyone just fucking forgot about the DMCA premises because, hey, Sephiroth's in Smash, yay. Same thing's gonna happen with PlayStation. Once they drop that new God of War trailer or Horizon Forbidden West or any of this other shit, people are going to forget, and then it's going to be another day on the internet. Same shit, different day. You complain, you forget. You complain, you forget. You complain, you forget. It's going to happen. The Jedi mind trick is going to be inevitable, as opposed to these people doing false boycotts, air quotes, false boycotts, and just simply saying, hey, I'm done with this platform. I don't want it anymore. I'm going to sell it and get some good money. I mean, they're scalping these days. You could probably get a good profit off of PS5 if you really didn't want that shit. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. Like, there's no lies in this podcast. Like, I'm telling you the God's honest truth. If you wanted to sell a PS5 for a very expensive price, you can do that. You can do that right fucking now, and you could come off clean, because the scalping scene is too big. You might as well join the party, and if you don't want it anymore, sell it, get more money, and get an Xbox and a PC, and you'll be fine. Like, I'm gonna be real with you guys. Like, if it doesn't inconvenience me, then I don't give a fuck until it does. Until it does, I have like all the platforms I need right now. I just need a PS5 and an Xbox Series X. Once I get that easy, then I just won't give a fuck. Like really, when you have everything you need, you just don't give a fuck about doom and gloom posting. Like, you just sit back and chill. Like, holy shit, it's cool to comment and cool to discuss, and I like to dabble in the discussions on Twitter, as you see. But I just really, at the end of the day, don't care if it doesn't affect me. Like, that's how I feel. That's how it's gotta be. You reap the benefits of everything you got so far as a hybrid owner, and I don't understand people who stick to one platform for an entire generation. So when the eventual competitor wins, you're not missing out on anything, because guess what? I still got the games from the old console that lost, and I also still have the games from Xbox and all that other shit. So I am not inconvenienced at all. That's how it works. That's how it flows. Adapt, overcome, and survive. The last sort of takeaway that I want people to understand is that I know quality is indicative first. That's why you're still getting all these exclusives from Sony. But a company is going to build themselves on sales first and foremost. And from a business sense, you have to understand why this stuff is always happening. I will say that execs come and go, so it's easy to say, well, Jim Ryan is the big bad, even though Xbox had their fair share of bad executives too, like Don Matrick. You know, these people are just easy to isolate and target out from the reviews and the interviews that they make. We'll see how it goes in the future. I'm not saying that the PS5 era is doomed, and I'm not saying it's going to be perfect either. Just some arguments are really not that good when you really break it down and talk about it and question a lot of what's going on both sides. The last thing I will say is that this screenshot here, This screenshot here is indicative of the knee-jerk reaction that people do on the internet by believing shit that they see due to an overly emotional, overly exaggerated response. If you believe shit like this, for example, I don't know what to tell you, just you are unintelligent if you believe this. Like, this is clearly written by an ex-bot, and people actually believe this screenshot. I just can't say it. I can't say this enough. Think smarter, think harder, and think for yourself. Okay? Until then, I will see you guys next time. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Let me know how you feel in the comments, and I will see you soon. Later.